What's happening around the world and what's happening here at home? A very good evening to you and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Sandru Ferdinando. Let's now take a quick look at your top stories for tonight.
Health sector warns of a possible fourth COVID-19 wave if the general public is not cautious.
ලොකුම ප්‍රශ්නය තමයි මේ ඩෙල්ටා වේරියන්ට් එක ඩෙල්ටා ප්‍රබෝධය. දැන් මේකෙන් මේ හතරවෙනි රැල්ල ආවොත් අපිට ලොකු ප්‍රශ්න වලට මුහුණ දෙන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා.
Teachers and principals, trade unions protest opposite the presidential secretariat, demanding for solutions to salary anomalies. Protests continue against the Kotalabala Defence University Bill. Anunayaka Theras of the Malwatu and Askiri chapters say the bill does not affect free education. Express Pearl continues to harm the environment. Suspicions arise of a possible oil spill.
First up in news here at home, 2 new foreign envoys presented credentials to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today.
Michael Edwards presented credentials as New Zealand's High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, while Andreas Marcelo presented credentials as Cuba's ambassador. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had apprised the envoys on steps taken by the government to combat the COVID-19 pandemic and also on the progress regarding the country's vaccination drive. The president had also spoken about the use of organic fertilizer and the steps taken to meet most of the country's electricity supply through renewable energy sources by 2030.
Meanwhile, 1,128 COVID-19 patients were reported today, bringing the total number of infections in the country to 290,705. 997 COVID-19 patients have made full recovery and were discharged, bringing the total number of COVID-19 recoveries in the country to 264,755. How should we face the threat posed by the Delta variant?
Steps must be taken to conduct random testing in certain areas, and after the areas under risk are identified, the people there must be advised on how to act. If the Delta variant begins to spread across the country like in India, the risk that we will have to face is very clear. The World Health Organization has instructed countries to avoid being hasty while relaxing restrictions.
According to data released by the Department of Government Information, the number of daily COVID-19 deaths reported in the country during the last week exceeded 40. Some reports also included the deaths that occurred over the course of a number of preceding days. Number of deaths reported on the 15th of July, 50. Number of deaths reported on the 16th of July, 41. Number of deaths reported on the 17th of July, 31. Number of deaths reported on the 18th of July, 46. Number of deaths reported on the 19th of July, 48. Number of deaths reported on the 20th of July, 43. Number of deaths reported on the 21st of July, 47.
Majority of those who died due to COVID-19 and those currently receiving treatment in ICUs have not been vaccinated. I would like to request those above the age of 60 and those who suffer with various other complications to visit the vaccination centers operated by the government and get vaccinated. The main objective of the vaccination drive is to save the lives of the people in our country.
Meanwhile, another consignment of 2 million doses of the Chinese-manufactured Sinopharm vaccine arrived in the island today. 1 million doses of the consignment were stored at the Central Vaccine Storage in Colombo, while the remaining doses were stored at a vaccine storage facility in Valisera. Meanwhile, U.S. Embassy in Sri Lanka today announced that the United States donated 500,000 rapid diagnostic tests worth 300 million Sri Lankan rupees to the Sri Lanka Ministry of Health through the United States government's development arm, the U.S. Agency for International Development. Former chairman of the Sri Lanka Medical Association specialist Dr. BJC Pereira stressed that if the public does not support the efforts to make the best use of the vaccines the country has received, there will be an increased danger of the Delta variant of the COVID-19 virus spreading in the country.
As it is now, we have actually gone through 3 waves. So that if there is a rapid rise of cases and deaths in the future, that we have no alternative but to call it another wave. That means it will be a 4th wave. We can see that as the clinicians who look after these patients, that there is a rise in these numbers, but I wouldn't say that it has reached a real major epidemic proportions yet. But then, having seen what this virus can do, we have no way of saying what the future would be. There is always the risk of an imminent surge of cases in the near future. And this again takes me back to the extreme importance of being conversant with the health guidelines and also following them almost to the letter. Why I mentioned the double masking at the start is that there is good scientific evidence that this increase the protection that is there in case the virus gets anywhere near a person.
Still in local news, teachers' union staged a protest opposite the presidential secretariat demanding authorities to resolve their salary anomalies. Members of 30 trade unions representing teachers and principals staged this protest.
Teachers and principals trade union staged a protest for nearly half an hour at the Colombo Fort railway station this afternoon. The protesters then marched towards the presidential secretariat. Our correspondent reported that the road opposite the presidential secretariat was closed for nearly 2 hours due to the protest. The protesters informed officials that they wanted to hand over an epistle.
කාර්යාලය තාම නැහැ. අපිට බැරිද අද සාකච්ඡාවක් දෙන්න මොකද නැත්නම් අපි දැන් ගුරුවරුන්ට උත්තරයක් දෙන්න. අපි කල්ලාතෝ කියලා තිබුණා දෙන බව දන්නවා. මේක රහසක් නෙවෙයිනේ අපි දැන් දවස් කීපයක් තිස්සේ අද මේ එනවා කොළඹට එනවා. සාමේ ජනාධිපති ලේකම් කාර්යාලයට එනවා කියලා අපි ඊයේත් නිවේදනය කරා.
3 trade union members were allowed to meet an additional secretary to the president. Avantgarde chairman Nisanka Senadipati arrived at the presidential secretariat at this instance. However, he was unable to enter the presidential secretariat due to the protest. Trade union members expressed the following views to the media following the discussion with the additional secretary. A 5-member committee of additional secretaries at the Education Ministry prepared a report after considering our demands and those of the Education Ministry. Implement the recommendations in this report. The Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor policy clearly states that teachers and principals will be considered as a separate service when salaries are being prepared. They are continuing to pass the buck. The ball is being passed from the Education Ministry to the Salaries Commission, back to the Education Ministry and then the State Ministry. The problem is not being resolved. That is why we came here. The President should intervene as the head of the government. The Salaries Commission falls under the President and the Cabinet. Teachers' unions have said that they will continue to suspend online lessons until their demands are met during next week's Cabinet meeting. Representatives of a number of teachers and principals trade unions called on the chief prelates of the Asgiri and Malwata chapters of the Siam sects to discuss matters regarding their salary anomalies.
නියමිත පරිදි ගුරුවරයාට දිය යුතු වැඩපත් තියෙනවා මානකරේ ඒක තමයි ඉල්ලන්නේ අපිට. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ගුරුවරයෙක් ගන්නේ මානකර රුපියල් 31000යි පඩිය දැන්. ඒක දවසකට රුපියල් 1000ක් හම්බ. 1000ක්වත් නැහැ මානකර. ගුරුවරයා කිව්වට දෙවිවරු කියලා කියනවා පූජනීයයි කියලා කියනවා ඒ ඔක්කොම කියනවා. හැබැයි වැටුප ඉතම පහන තැනක තමයි මේ පූජනීය පත්‍රෙ දීලා තියෙන්නේ. අපි කොයි මොහොතේ
We are not ready to backtrack or give up on our struggles. Give us the salaries that we were deprived of for 24 years.
අපෙන් උදුරාගත්ත අපිට හිමි වෙච්ච අපිට නොදීපු වැටුප අපිට දෙන්න.
Members of the Sri Lanka Port Janaperimana have expressed concerns over the trade union action launched by groups representing teachers and principals.
People like Joseph Stalin were never employed as teachers in schools. Trade union members are people who function as members of NGOs, as they act according to their whims and fancies. A similar situation arose in 1989 as well. Today, these trade unions are trying to create a similar scenario again.
Joseph Stalin is not someone who genuinely cares for the children, the teachers, the education system or our country. I'm sure you remember that he is also a terrorist who instructed the removal of roadblocks so that the LTTE could escape. He's continuing to carry out acts of terrorism today as well.
ත්‍රස්තවාදියෙක් ගත්තරම. ඉතින් ඒක
නිසා ඒගොල්ලෝ ඇවිල්ලා
එතනින් එහාට මේ ත්‍රස්තවාදී වැඩ කරන්නේ.
ඒගොල්ලෝ
මේ වෙලාවේ
ඇවිල්ලා NGO වල සල්ලි වලින් ජීවත් වෙන කට්ටිය.
අනිවාර්යයෙන්. මේ ක්‍රියාමාර්ග වුණාද ওই කාලේදී අපි යුද්ධ. නෑ ඒක තමයි දැන් ත්‍රස්ත විමර්ශන අංශයත් එක්ක මම මේ දැන් ඔක්කොම තොරතුරු කතා කරගෙන ගිහලා අනිවාර්යයෙන්. තමුන්ට බලපෑමක් වෙනකොට විතරයි ඒක යට කරන්නේ. නෑ නෑ පසුගිය සතියේ තමයි මට තොරතුරු ගා.
I only received information on this last week. Action will definitely be taken based on this information. The people gave us this mandate to speak on behalf of suffering taxpayers.
රටට බදු ගෙවන මිනිස්සුන් එක්ක කතා කරන්න. ඒකද මේ රිසාඩ් බදුදී මහත්තයාගේ සහායම ගන්නේ.
අපි කිසිම සහායක් කරන්නේ.
ස්වේච්ඡාවෙන් ඇවිල්ලා අපිට ඡන්ද දෙනවා නම් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ 225ටම අපි ආරාධනා කරානේ. දැන් මේකෙදි සහාය හම්බුණානේ රිසාඩ් ලොන්ගෙට. ඉදිරියටත් හම්බෙදී මේ ස්වාධීන.
ඉදිරියට මං හිතන්නේ ඔයිට වැඩි හම්බෙයි.
ඒක මේ මාධ්‍යයෙන් නිකන් අනවශ්‍ය නිකන් මේ මම ගන්න එපා.
සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඉතින් ඕන විදියට පේන්නේ.
While teachers and principal unions continue to protest against salary anomalies, student unions have launched protests against the Sir John Kothilawal Defence University Bill. The bill is to be taken up for a debate again on the 6th of August. However, it will be taken into consideration by a consultation committee appointed by the Defence Ministry before the debate. This is a comprehensive look at the ongoing discourse concerning the Sir John Kothilawal Defence University Bill. Parents can enroll their stubborn children at this university. This will assure you that your child will never join any protest or satyagraha. Your child will never lock up their lecturers in their classrooms. They will be able to pursue their higher education in a more disciplined environment. One day, they will be able to contribute purely to the development of our motherland and make us proud when they graduate. This is the function of the Kothilawal Defence University. Even the current Secretary of the Education Ministry, Professor Kapila Pereira, is an alumnus of the Kothilawal Defence University. We have no intention of interfering or controlling the free education of this country.
විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ප්‍රතිපාදන කොමිෂන් සභාව නැත්නම් UGC එක පිහිටෙව්වේ.
The University Grants Commission is established by the Universities Act number 16 of 1978, but a Gazette notification was published on the 16th of this month to bring amendments to this act. But this amendment won't change the military mechanism within this. While this mechanism will continue to exist, we will not be able to find a solution to the allegations raised by the people of this country. We believe the President owes an answer to the citizens of this country. People need to know whether the Kotalawala Defence University will continue to function as a military university or as a civil university.
එහෙම නැත්නම් සිවිල් ශිෂ්‍යයින්ට අයත් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයක් හැටියටද කියන තීරණාත්මක ප්‍රශ්නෙට උත්තර දෙන්නට.
It's wrong to call this militarization. If students can follow these basic rules and disciplines of the Defence University, we will be able to produce a significant and civilized group of people. Therefore, I would like to kindly state that it is a matter of national importance to pass these rules and regulations for the betterment of this university.
නීති රීති සම්මත කොට මෙම විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ අනාගත අභිවෘද්ධිය සඳහා කටයුතු සලසා දීම ජාතික වැදගත් කමකින් යුක්ත කාර්යයක් වන බව කරුණාධ්‍යාසයෙන් සඳහන් කරන්නට කැමැතියි.
අද රටේ උසස් අධ්‍යාපනයේ හදාරන ඇතම් ශිෂ්‍ය ප්‍රජාවත්
Today, many students in state universities are unable to complete their education on time. The main reason for this is that these students devote their precious time to politics. Many developed countries and even our neighboring nations like Nepal, Bangladesh and India follow both free education and private education. Children of certain individuals who oppose the establishment of private universities in our country also study in foreign universities. I want to take this opportunity to remind you that it is our duty to work for the betterment of the country and the betterment of our people. Therefore, it is our duty to strengthen the program initiated by the President in this regard.
යුතුයකමක් බව කරුණාවෙන් මතක් කිරීමට කැමැතියි.
A protest was staged by the Inter-University Students' Federation in the Kurunegala town, demanding the government to withdraw the Kotalawala Defence University Bill. In 2018, a bill was drafted to privatize the education of the country. The bill was named as the Kotalawala Private University Bill. Back then, Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Mahinda Rajapaksa said that we should defeat this bill. But today, they have brought it again to deprive the education of the innocent citizens of this country. The protesters, who staged the demonstration for about an hour, attempted to burn a model of a coffin labelled as free education, but their move was obstructed by the police. Meanwhile, another protest was staged by the Inter-University Students' Federation and the Student Movement for Free Education in the Kaduruvela town in Polonnarwa. No provision in this bill will empower us to control other universities, but this bill has allowed us to work hand in hand with other local and foreign universities. Many say that this bill will grant us more powers than the University Grants Commission. This bill will be enforced only to control the administration of the Kotalawala Defence University.
Meanwhile, the Samagi Jana Palavegia made a revelation today regarding the Mahapula Trust Fund that is used to provide scholarships for university students.
On Sunday, the Maubima newspaper reported that the Mahapola Act, which places the Mahapola Trust Fund under the purview of the Chief Justice, is to be amended. Today's newspapers reported that the act governing the Mahapola Fund, which is chaired by the Chief Justice, is to be amended in a manner that it affects the independence of the act. These attempts give room for suspicion on whether the government is trying to interfere with the allocations made for students who benefit through the Mahapola Fund, as they don't have money. This is a warning that the fund is facing a threat of being influenced politically. There was no political influence on this fund for the last 40 years. The government hasn't responded to this yet. It's been nearly a week since the matter came to light. That is the danger here. This is suspicious. The government can call this a wrong move if it is wrong.
The Samagi Janabala Vega staged a protest in the Homagama town today over several issues including the rising cost of living, the suppression of protests and the fertilizer crisis. The protest led by opposition leader Sajid Premadasa was attended by several members of the Samagi Janabala Vega. The people are under a lot of pressure. On one hand, fuel prices have been increased. On the other hand, farmers have not been given fertilizer. Online education has been suspended. The population of Sri Lanka has not been fully vaccinated. While the elite people of the country have received the jab, the general public is left without concessions. If you are hoping to remain in power for 5 more years by misleading the public, that is never going to happen. It is quite clear that the people are waiting for the first democratic opportunity to oust this government. The Janata Vimukti Peramuna staged a protest in Thanamalvilla citing various issues including the rising cost of living. The Janata Vimukti Peramuna has gathered at the Thanamalvilla town with the people to oppose the steps taken by the government to continuously increase the prices of goods and to burden the public. We came here demanding for an environment that is suitable for the people to live in. The Samagi Janabala Vega and the Janata Vimukti Peramuna filed separate petitions against the proposed finance bill with the Supreme Court today.
The finance bill published by the Finance Minister on the 20th of July proposes amnesties for voluntarily disclosing taxes that should have been disclosed under the law. Samagi Janabala Vega parliamentarian Iran Vikramaratne had filed a petition with the Supreme Court today. He had argued that 1% tax imposed for disclosing previously undisclosed taxes is lower than the tax liability of the people who have already settled tax payments. The petitioner noted that granting such amnesty to people who did not disclose their taxes would legitimize the fraud committed by them. He added that the clauses in the bill will encourage further tax evasion and will not bring benefits to the state. Meanwhile, former Janata Vimukti Peramuna parliamentarian Sunil Handunetti also filed a petition with the Supreme Court today. The objective of that bill is to encourage money laundering. Section 4 of the bill allows a person to pay a nominal fee over funds that were received unlawfully and beyond the legal framework and then get away with it. Section 6 of the bill granted immunity to such individuals. Allowing funds that were amassed unlawfully to enter the economic system would nullify certain clauses in the Inland Revenue Act. Section 7 of the bill asks the Commissioner General of Inland Revenue to avoid disclosing details on funds that were earned unlawfully and not disclosed previously. The Prevention of Money Laundering Act, the Convention on the Suppression of Terrorist Financing Act, Bribery Act, and the Conventions Against Illicit Traffic in Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act will not be valid due to this. These amendments cannot be passed in Parliament without seeking a public referendum. The financial powers of Parliament would be challenged. A clarification over that matter is required.
Most
of the ministers and parliamentarians will be able to benefit through this act, as it would legalize the fraud that they have committed. If Makandure Madush was alive, this law will allow funds that he amassed through drug racketeering in Dubai to be brought to the country.
Madushtත් ලංකාවට ගේන්න පුළුවන් ආකාරයේ නීතියක් තමයි මේ හදලා තියෙන්නේ.
Farmers are continuing to stage protests demanding a solution to the fertilizer crisis. One protest was staged in Badulla today.
It is said that farmers are like kings, but today farmers have been struck by a double whammy. The rulers of this country don't have money. They are not importing fertilizer for farmers due to the shortage of foreign currency. The rulers who said that they will provide facilities for farmers to cultivate crops have now violated the rights of all these farmers. These rulers are now anticipating the lands to go barren in order to give them away to their henchmen or their companies. The crops have turned yellow. Who is speaking about it? No one seems to be talking about it. They obtained signed documents from us to provide fertilizer, but we don't know who received those stocks.
Farmers in Godakavala are complaining that they won't be able to reap the expected harvest.
It is the poor people who are affected. We don't receive anything including concessions or fertilizer, although such statements are made on TV. We wouldn't mind if fertilizer is granted under concessionary rates, but that isn't there as well.
A kilo of ridged gourd seeds costs 35,000 rupees. People have been planting these seeds, but there is no fertilizer. We have to rely on crops that are growing without that.
Meanwhile, environmentalists have revealed that an oil leak has occurred from the Express Pearl vessel that sunk in Sri Lankan waters recently.
The Centre for Environmental Justice released footage of an oil leak from the Express Pearl vessel that sunk in Sri Lankan waters after a blaze erupted on board the ship.
I remember that Star News had released footage of an oil spill from the vessel when it sank, but the government said that there is no oil leak and that there is only a slight spill which is not serious, but a substantial amount of oil had leaked from the vessel. The authorities haven't taken the relevant steps in that regard. Oil has been leaking from fuel tanks containing engine oil. They did not take steps to cover the leak despite having funds to do that. The oil spill could have been prevented if they had taken the appropriate measures. Our country is in a state of bankruptcy. If money is not being spent, then our entire sea will be polluted.
Officials said that 297 tons of heavy fuel had been on board the vessel when it caught fire. Officials also said that relevant remedial measures would be taken in the event of an oil spill. The State Minister in charge of the subject, Mohan De Silva, told Newsfirst that tests are being conducted on water samples that have been obtained from the sea. He did not confirm claims of an oil spill in Sri Lankan waters.
Around 275 turtle carcasses have washed ashore. The carcasses of diseased creatures have also washed up. The tests have shown that these creatures had died as a result of being exposed to chemicals and oil. The construction of the port and the port city has acted as a barrier to the waters flowing from the southern to the northern region. The problem is that the fuel and chemicals that have leaked into the waters will continue to remain there. Marine life that is linked to each other will be affected by this situation. They cannot claim that they would not undertake the responsibility for this and then neglect this matter by citing a shortage of technology and funds.
What steps would be taken in the event of a possible oil leak in Sri Lankan waters? What arrangements have been made to face this situation? Where is the proposed compensation that is to be sought for these damages?
The Indian and British naval forces have launched a 3-day joint maritime exercise in the Bay of Bengal near the Sea of Sri Lanka.
Britain's largest aircraft carrier, HMS Queen Elizabeth, and the vessels in its strike group have joined the maritime exercise in the Bay of Bengal. Foreign media reported that Britain expects to enhance its profile in the Indo-Pacific and to foster defence ties with nations across the region through this exercise. The task group is set to sail to the disputed South China Sea on the next leg of its deployment. Indian media reported that the joint naval exercise is being carried out in light of China's influence in the region. Yesterday, India had successfully conducted the flight test of a developed man-portable anti-tank guided missile. Indian media reported that the test brings the development of the indigenous third-generation missile close to completion.
The official cheering song to support the Sri Lankan team at the Tokyo 2020 Games was launched today.
The event was held at the Capital Maharaja Auditorium. Subsidiary of the Capital Maharaja Group, EVA was the cheering partner of Team Sri Lanka participating in the Olympic.
Capital Maharaja Group is built on the values of excellence, respect and friendship. And the group and its media will be brands which are built over the years, and the consumer brands has always promoting empowering young talents and females to lead the way through.
Taking part in the Olympics is every athlete's dream and requires huge amounts of determination and long years of training. But the determination and perseverance put in by athletes for these Olympic Games, with all its challenges, is something that we at the National Olympic Committee applaud them for every day. We can congratulate Team Sri Lanka on defying all barriers and qualifying for the Games in the midst of a global pandemic.
And with that, we wrap up news for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. Do take care and good night.